First encounter. The pristine waiting room of Montgomery Cardiac Institute gleamed with polished marble and soft lighting that probably cost more per month than Violet Turner's entire bookstore made in profit. She sat perched at the edge of an impossibly comfortable leather chair, clutching her worn messenger bag to her chest like armor, trying to make herself as small as possible. "Miss Turner?" The receptionist's voice made her jump. She was a sleek, beautiful woman whose makeup looked professionally applied, making Violet acutely aware of her own plain appearance. Mousy brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, minimal makeup, and clothes chosen for comfort rather than style. "Dr. Montgomery will see you now." Violet stood on shaky legs. At 29, she'd mastered the art of invisibility, running her small bookstore, communicating with publishers via email, having groceries delivered to avoid shopping. But the heart palpitations that had plagued her for months had finally frightened her enough to seek medical help. Her regular doctor had referred her here to Boston's most exclusive cardiac specialist, a doctor who treated celebrities and politicians, not awkward bookstore owners with health anxiety. "This way, please," the receptionist said, gesturing down a hallway lined with framed medical degrees and awards. The examination room was unlike any Violet had seen before, more like a luxury hotel suite than a medical facility. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Boston Harbor, and the examination table was upholstered in what looked like genuine leather. "Dr. Montgomery will be with you shortly. Please change into this gown opening to the front," the nurse instructed, handing Violet a soft cotton garment that felt nothing like the paper gown she'd worn at her regular clinic. Left alone, Violet changed quickly, her hands trembling. She'd researched Dr. Ethan Montgomery extensively before this appointment. Harvard Medical School, Johns Hopkins residency, published in every major cardiac journal, and rumored to have a waiting list months long. How her regular doctor had secured an appointment remained a mystery. The door opened without a knock, and Violet instinctively crossed her arms over her chest, despite being fully covered by the gown. Dr. Ethan Montgomery was exactly as the magazine profiles described him, tall and imposing, with dark hair showing distinguished touches of silver at the temples despite being only in his early 40s. His eyes were a penetrating blue that seemed to catalog every detail as he glanced at her chart. "Miss Turner, I'm Dr. Montgomery," he said, his voice deep and clinical. "I understand you've been experiencing palpitations." Violet tried to speak, but her throat closed up, the familiar feeling of panic rising. This happened whenever she was faced with authority figures, attractive people, or high-pressure situations. Dr. Montgomery was all three. He looked up from the chart when she didn't respond, his expression shifting subtly from professional detachment to something more attentive. "Take your time," he said, his tone softening slightly. "Would you like some water?" Violet nodded, grateful for the reprieve. He poured her a glass from a crystal carafe on the counter. Even the water looked expensive here, and handed it to her. Their fingers brushed briefly, causing her to nearly drop the glass. "Sorry," she managed, taking a small sip. "Yes, palpitations. For a few months now. Sometimes my heart races so fast I think I'm dying." Dr. Montgomery nodded, sitting on a stool across from her. "Any shortness of breath? Dizziness?" "Both, especially in social situations." "I see." He made a note on her chart. "And your regular physician ran an EKG?" "Yes." He said it looked normal but wanted a specialist's opinion. Dr. Montgomery set the chart aside. "I'll need to examine you now. I'm going to listen to your heart and check your blood pressure. Is that all right?" Violet nodded, though her heart immediately began racing at the thought of being touched. As he placed the stethoscope against her chest, she flinched involuntarily. "Are you in pain?" he asked, immediately pulling back. "No, sorry. I don't like being touched." Her face burned with embarrassment. "I have social anxiety. Severe social anxiety." Something flickered in his eyes. Curiosity, perhaps. "I'll be as quick as possible," he assured her. Throughout the examination, he was clinically efficient but surprisingly gentle. Violet noticed his hands, strong but careful, with long fingers that moved with practiced precision. He smelled faintly of expensive cologne and antiseptic, an oddly comforting combination. "Your heart sounds structurally normal," he said finally, stepping back. "But your heart rate is elevated. How long have you had anxiety?" "All my life, I think. But it got worse after my parents died. Car accident 10 years ago." Dr. Montgomery nodded, making another note. Do you take any medication for anxiety? I tried once. It made me feel strange, disconnected. I stopped. And have you seen a therapist? Violet looked down at her hands. A few, it's hard to talk to strangers. Yet you're talking to me, he observed, his tone neutral. You're a doctor. It's different somehow. He sat back down, studying her with those intense blue eyes. Miss Turner, I believe your heart palpitations are a physical manifestation of your anxiety. There's a strong connection between psychological stress and cardiac symptoms. She nodded, having suspected as much but still feeling disappointed. So there's nothing you can do? I didn't say that. He typed something on his tablet. I'd like to run some tests to rule out any physical causes. But I also want to refer you to a colleague who specializes in anxiety disorders. Another therapist? Violet sighed. Dr. Rebecca Franklin is one of the best in her field. Her approach might be different from what you've experienced before. Violet hesitated, then blurted out, Do you know what it's like? To be afraid of everything? To feel your heart trying to escape your chest just because someone looks at you? Dr. Montgomery seemed taken aback by her sudden forthrightness. I can't say that I do, no. I'm 29 years old, she continued, surprising herself with this confession, and I've never even been kissed. Because the thought of being that close to someone terrifies me. Her voice cracked slightly. How pathetic is that? The moment the words left her mouth, Violet wanted to disappear. She never shared personal details like this, especially not with intimidatingly handsome doctors in designer suits. Dr. Montgomery was silent for a moment, his professional mask slipping just enough to reveal genuine surprise, followed by something else. Compassion, perhaps. There's nothing pathetic about it, he said finally, his voice gentler than before. Anxiety is a medical condition, not a character flaw. He reached for his prescription pad, but his movements seemed less automatic now, as if her confession had disrupted his usual clinical rhythm. I'm going to prescribe a mild anti-anxiety medication, different from what you tried before, and I strongly recommend you see Dr. Franklin. He hesitated, then added, Would it help if I called her personally? Explained your situation? Violet looked up, surprised by the offer. Distinguished specialists like Dr. Montgomery didn't typically make personal calls for patients. You would do that? Yes. The word was simple but delivered with unexpected sincerity. As Violet redressed after the examination, she wondered why this cold, clinical doctor, known for his detachment and efficiency, was showing her such consideration, and why, despite her anxiety, she felt strangely comfortable in his presence. When she emerged, Dr. Montgomery was waiting, prescription in hand. I've scheduled a follow-up for 2 weeks from now, he said, and I'll call Dr. Franklin this afternoon. Their fingers brushed again as she took the prescription, but this time Violet didn't flinch quite as much. Thank you. Dr. Montgomery. Ethan, he said, the word seeming to surprise even him. My name is Ethan. As Violet left the Montgomery Cardiac Institute, clutching her prescription and appointment card, she had no way of knowing that her innocent confession had completely disrupted the carefully ordered world of Boston's most disciplined doctor, a man who had built his entire career on never breaking the rules. Professional boundaries, Dr. Ethan Montgomery couldn't focus. 3 days had passed since Violet Turner's appointment, and her words kept replaying in his mind. I'm 29 years old, and I've never even been kissed. Her vulnerability had pierced the professional armor he'd carefully constructed over 15 years of practice. In the sterile environment of his penthouse overlooking Boston Harbor, he found himself thinking about her shy smile and genuine innocence. Dr. Montgomery? His assistant's voice through the intercom interrupted his thoughts. Dr. Franklin on line 1. He picked up immediately. Rebecca, thank you for calling back. Your message intrigued me, Dr. Franklin replied. You've never personally referred a patient before. Miss Turner is a special case. She had her first session yesterday. Remarkable woman. Brilliant but terrified of human connection. What's your interest in her, Ethan? Purely professional, he answered too quickly. Rebecca's silence spoke volumes. They'd known each other since medical school. Just keep me updated on her progress, he added, ending the call before Rebecca could question him further. That evening, Ethan drove past Violet's bookstore, turning pages after hours. Through the window, he saw her shelving books, completely absorbed in her task. He caught himself smiling and drove away, disturbed by his own behavior. For her part, Violet found herself thinking about Dr. Montgomery's piercing blue eyes and unexpected kindness. The medication he'd Crossing lines. 2 weeks later, Violet sat in Dr. Montgomery's waiting room for her follow-up appointment. Her heart still raced, but differently now. More anticipation than fear. "Miss Turner," Ethan said, entering the examination room. "How are you feeling?" "Better," she admitted. "The medication helps, and Dr. Franklin is insightful." "Good." He checked her vitals, noting her heart rate was lower than before. "Your physical symptoms are improving." "She's having me practice small social interactions," Violet explained. "Yesterday I actually had coffee at a cafe instead of taking it to go." Ethan smiled, genuinely pleased by this small victory. "That's excellent progress." As the examination concluded, he found himself reluctant to end their appointment. "Miss Turner, Violet, there's a medical charity gala this weekend. As your doctor, I think it might be a good exposure exercise. Would you consider attending? I could introduce you to a few colleagues. Controlled social interaction." The word surprised them both. Violet's eyes widened. "I don't have anything to wear to something like that," she said reflexively. "Is that a yes?" Ethan asked. Yes, I think I'd like to try." Later that evening, Violet called Dr. Franklin in a panic. "He invited me to a gala. As exposure therapy," she explained. "And you accepted?" Franklin sounded surprised. "I did. Am I crazy?" "No, but Ethan might be," Franklin muttered. "Violet, be careful. Ethan Montgomery doesn't typically blur professional boundaries." "It's not like that," Violet insisted, though her racing heart suggested otherwise. Complications. The night of the gala arrived. Violet had splurged on a simple blue dress that brought out the hints of gold in her brown eyes. She'd even let her hair down from its usual ponytail, the chestnut waves falling softly around her shoulders. When Ethan arrived to pick her up, he stared for a moment before speaking. "You look beautiful," he said simply. At the gala, Ethan stayed close, guiding her through conversations with a gentle hand at her back. To her surprise, Violet found herself speaking about books with a neurologist, even laughing at a cardiologist's joke. "You're a natural," Ethan whispered as they stood alone for a moment. "Only because you're here," she replied honestly. Their eyes met and something electric passed between them. Ethan leaned slightly closer. "Dr. Montgomery," the hospital administrator's voice cut through the moment. "Introducing your bookstore friend to Boston society?" His tone suggested impropriety, making Violet step back self-consciously. "Miss Turner is a patient making remarkable progress with social anxiety," Ethan replied coolly. "Patient?" "Interesting approach to treatment," the administrator remarked pointedly. Later that night, as Ethan drove Violet home, an uncomfortable silence filled the car. "I apologize for Harold," Ethan finally said. "He was inappropriate." "But he wasn't wrong, was he?" Violet asked quietly. "Doctors don't typically take patients to galas." Ethan parked outside her bookstore. "No, they don't. Why did you invite me, really?" He turned to face her. "Because I haven't stopped thinking about you since the day you walked into my office." The confession hung between them, dangerous and thrilling. "I should go," Violet whispered, though she made no move to leave. "We can't do this," Ethan agreed, even as he leaned toward her. Violet's phone rang, breaking the spell. Her elderly neighbor needed help with a plumbing emergency. "I have to go," she said, this time opening the car door. "Thank you for tonight." Ethan watched her disappear into her building. Knowing he was crossing a line he'd never thought he'd approach. Breaking the rules. The next morning, Ethan received a formal email from the hospital ethics committee requesting a meeting regarding his concerning behavior with a patient. News traveled fast in Boston medical circles. Meanwhile, Violet received a new appointment card. Her case had been transferred to another cardiologist within the practice. No explanation provided. She spent 3 days in agony, alternating between embarrassment and despair. Had she misread everything? Was she just a charity case for him? On the 4th day, the bell above her bookstore door chimed. Violet looked up to see Ethan standing there, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. "You're not supposed to be here," she said quietly. "I'm not supposed to do a lot of things when it comes to you," he replied, walking toward her counter. "I've resigned from the hospital board. I've transferred all my patients, except one, to other physicians. Except one? You." Because I can't be your doctor anymore, Violet. Her heart raced in the familiar way, but not from anxiety. Why not? Because doctors can't date their patients. And I very much want to date you. Violet's breath caught. You gave up your position on the board for me? You don't even know me. I want to, though, Ethan said. I want to know the woman who spends hours organizing books by mood rather than alphabet. Who has the courage to face her fears one small step at a time. Who made me realize I've been hiding behind my own walls just as much as she has. He reached across the counter, his hand stopping just short of hers. I've spent my entire career following rules, maintaining distance, being the perfect physician. Then you walked in and said you'd never been kissed, and suddenly all those rules seemed meaningless. Violet slowly, deliberately placed her hand over his. Dr. Franklin says I need to take risks. Does she? Ethan smiled, turning his hand to clasp hers. She also says you're breaking every ethical code in medicine. And she thinks it might be the healthiest thing you've ever done. Violet walked around the counter to stand before him. I'm still scared, she admitted. So am I, Ethan confessed. I've never felt this way about anyone. I've never been kissed, she reminded him, her voice barely above a whisper. May I change that, he asked. Instead of answering, Violet rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips gently to his. The kiss was sweet, tentative, and perfect. When they separated, both smiling, Ethan whispered, worth breaking every rule in the book. As he pulled her close for another kiss, Violet realized that sometimes the things we fear most become the doorways to everything we need, and sometimes the most rigid hearts are the ones most ready to be transformed by unexpected love.